It was supposed to be a normal visit, the kind where you walk into a bank, fill out a form, maybe get a coffee if they're being fancy, and leave with a solution. But this wasn't just any bank. And she wasn't just any manager. She was my sister, older, by 4 years. Smarter, at least according to every report card growing up, more confident, always dressed like she owned the world. The type of woman who shook hands with CEOs and looked them in the eye without blinking. And I was the failure who couldn't even keep his phone service active. I hadn't seen her in 2 years. Life had been hard. Layoffs, bills, and the worst. Part pride. Pride kept me from asking for help. But that day, I had no choice. Rent was overdue. My account was in the red. I had $12 to my name, and I needed $100 to survive until Friday. So I walked into that glass fortress she worked, and everything inside was shiny. White marble floors, clean desks, security guards in crisp uniforms. And there she was behind a thick glass wall, laughing at something on her phone, probably a meme sent by some rich client. I tapped on the door lightly. She looked up. Smile faded just a bit when she saw me. "Daniel?" She said, as if my name tasted sour. "What are you doing here?" I smiled, pretending I hadn't noticed the change in her voice. "I just need a quick talk. 5 minutes." She sighed, glanced at her watch, then gestured to a chair across her desk. I sat down and felt smaller than ever. She leaned back in her leather chair. "What's going on?" And I told her the truth, not the whole thing, just enough. I'd been jobless, then underpaid. Rent was due. I was between paychecks. I needed $100, just a short-term buffer. I promised to return it within the week. For a moment, she stared at me, and then she laughed. It started as a smirk, then a chuckle, then a full laugh that echoed across the glass walls, making a few coworkers glance over. "You're still doing this?" she said, shaking her head. "I thought you'd have figured it out by now." I swallowed hard. "It's not a handout," I said quietly. "I'll pay you back." "Oh, please." She rolled her eyes. "Dan, come on. You've always been like this. Dreamer, broke. Too proud to work at a gas station, too lazy to finish anything. And now you show up in my office asking for money." She leaned forward, lowering her voice. "Let me give you a piece of advice. Grow up." That last part stung more than anything else. Grow up. As if my struggle made me childish. Didn't argue. I just nodded, stood up slowly, and walked out without another word. But something happened on that walk home. Every step, every echo of her laugh in my ears. It wasn't just pain anymore. It was fire. That $100 meant nothing to her. But it changed everything for me. Because that day, I decided one thing: I would never ask anyone for anything again, especially not her. I didn't sleep that night. I laid awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about every moment she made me feel small. I thought about when we were kids, and she mocked my drawings, when she got into business school and I failed an exam, when our parents celebrated her promotion and barely noticed I was working 2 jobs. The truth was, she never believed in me. And now I didn't care anymore. I wasn't going to beg for validation. I wasn't going to prove anything to her with words. I was going to build something so big that the world would turn when I walked by, and she'd see it. One day, she'd see it. The thing about humiliation is it doesn't fade with time. It burrows deep, wraps itself around your memory, and replays itself when you least expect it. For weeks after that day at the bank, I avoided people, friends, family, even myself. I stopped looking in mirrors. I didn't want to see the guy who couldn't even borrow $100 from his own blood without being laughed out of the room. But in the silence, I started to remember. The truth is, my sister had always made me feel like a guest in my own family, Growing up, we were never close. Not really. She was the golden child, perfect grades, polished speeches, a natural leader. Teachers loved her. Mom bragged about her. Dad joked that she'd be president someday, and me. I was the messy one, the dreamer, the kid who built weird machines out of scrap and wrote short stories no one ever read. My room was chaos. My notebooks were full of unfinished plans and business ideas scribbled in blue ink. But no one saw potential. They saw disorganization, immaturity. Why can't you be more like your sister? Was a sentence I knew by heart. Used to try, I really did. I joined the debate team, failed in the first round, tried to run for class rep. No one voted, tried business school, dropped out after a semester I couldn't afford. Every failure just gave her more ammo, more reasons to believe she was right, that I was meant to stay small. But deep inside me, there was always this strange belief, this quiet voice that whispered, you were meant for more. It didn't shout, it didn't fight. It just stayed. That voice was the only thing I had. Left after walking out of her office. It was winter. I remember that. Cold nights, blankets that weren't warm enough, and a space heater that barely worked. I was living in a shared apartment with 3 strangers. Cockroaches in the kitchen. Rent that ate up what little income I had, and yet somehow I wasn't bitter. I was broken, yes. But bitterness, no. I knew I had to rebuild. I wasn't going to do it the usual way, not through handouts, not through resumes that got GHOSTED, not by begging family members who only remembered my name when they needed a moving truck. No, I was going to figure it out, alone. I started by writing down everything I was good at. Not what the world told me I should be, not what looked good on LinkedIn, just raw skills. I could write. I could think big. I had ideas, wild ones. But some of them were solid. I started learning about money, not saving it, creating it. I watched hours of videos about startups, passive income, crypto, investing, flipping, code, real estate, everything. And I wasn't just watching, I was taking notes, studying, testing every night while my roommates slept. I stayed up with a cracked screen laptop that overheated every 20 minutes, sold things on eBay, started freelance writing, learned how to flip domain names, wrote blog posts for shady websites for $10 a pop. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't even stable, but it was mine. It was hustle. And something started to shift. Not my bank account. Not yet, but my mindset. I stopped seeing myself as a failure and started seeing myself as someone on a mission. Because the truth is, once you hit rock bottom, there's no more fear. You've already been humiliated. You've already been laughed at. You've already been rejected by your own family. What else is there to lose? That kind of freedom is dangerous. It makes you bold, and boldness, that's how empires are built. I wasn't thinking about revenge. Not anymore. I wasn't thinking about proving anything to my sister. I was thinking about creating something so real, so undeniable, that the world would notice without me saying a word. But before I could rise, I had to unlearn everything I was taught, because the world tells you success comes from fitting in, from getting the degree, following the path, checking the boxes. But real success, it's loud in silence. It happens in the dark before anyone claps. And that's where I was. In the dark, alone, quiet. But I was building piece by piece. And even though no one saw it, I knew one day soon they would. There's a certain energy you get when no one believes in you. It's not loud. It's not pretty. But it's powerful. That's what fueled me through those first few months. The grind wasn't glamorous. It never is. Waking up early with no real job to report to. Going to sleep late with no applause waiting. Hustling online gigs. Getting ghosted by clients. Watching your work get published under someone else's name. But I kept going because somewhere in the chaos, I started building momentum. It began with writing blogs, product descriptions, ghostwriting short ebooks. I took any project I could land. I wasn't proud. I just needed cash flow. 1 gig turned into 2. Then 10. I earned my first $500 in a week. That felt like a win. Then I started reinvesting, not a foe, into luxury, but into knowledge. I bought courses, cheap ones. Udemy, YouTube premium channels, anything about finance, investing, digital skills. Late one night, I stumbled into the world of cryptocurrency. Not the hype coins or the overnight get-rich scams. Untucking fundamentals. Blockchain, utility tokens, long-term value. I was skeptical at first, but something clicked. It wasn't just about buying Bitcoin or hoping it skyrocketed. It was about understanding markets, psychology, timing. I took $300 from my freelance earnings and split it into 3 coins I'd researched for weeks. Within a month, one of them doubled. Another tripled. That was the spark. I didn't cash out. I reinvested. More research. More strategy. I wasn't gambling. I was learning to predict behavior. Crypto taught me risk. But more than that, it taught me patience. At the same time, I started learning code. Front end, back end, Python, JavaScript, building basic apps. I didn't want to become a developer. I wanted to understand how tech worked, because deep down, I had an idea. An itch. I wanted to build a platform, something simple but powerful, a financial tracking tool for freelancers and gig workers like me who struggled with managing inconsistent income. So I got to work. Nights were spent balancing 3 worlds, freelance gigs to pay rent, crypto to build capital. Code and product design to build the future. I didn't sleep much. I ate instant noodles, drank too much coffee, lost touch with most people. But I felt alive. After 6 months of grind, I had something rough, but real. An app, functional, clean, simple. I shared it in a Reddit forum for digital nomads, then on a Facebook group for freelancers, then on Product Hunt. That's when the magic happened. The app took off. Not viral, not explosive, but steady. Freelancers started downloading it, using it, sharing it. Feedback came in, bugs, ideas, improvements. I listened. I updated. I improved. Within 3 months, we had 10,000 users. A fintech blog picked up the story, called it the Side Hustler's CFO. An angel investor reached out, said he loved the concept, offered $150,000 for a small equity slice. I said yes. Didn't even have an LLC at that point. I had to learn how to form a company, hire a lawyer, file taxes, all in a matter of days. But I did it because I'd made a decision a long time ago. No more playing small. The funding helped. I brought on 2 developers, people I'd met in coding forums, on contract. We scaled, cleaned up the app, improved UX, added features. User count tripled. We launched a paid premium version. Revenues started rolling in. Slowly. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was winning. And still through it all, I never spoke to her. Not once. No calls. No texts. Not even a reply to the automated happy birthday message she sent that year. Because while she was still working 9 to 5, climbing a corporate ladder someone else built, I was building the whole building. By year 2, the app had over 300,000 users in 20 countries. We raised $2.1 million in our Series A, and I was sitting across from billionaires, pitching them something I had once built in my bedroom with a cracked laptop. That same week, I bought myself a small apartment, nothing flashy, just mine. Then I bought my parents a house. I didn't tell them how. They didn't ask. They just assumed I'd finally found a good job. Let them think that. It wasn't time yet. But it was coming. That moment. The one where silence would speak louder than anything I could ever say. And she had no idea what was heading her way. Success. Doesn't happen overnight, but when it hits fast. I'm loud, by year 3. I wasn't just a founder. I was a name. Our app had become the go-to money tool for freelancers, creators, and self-employed professionals around the world. We weren't just managing income, we were building features. Banks hadn't even imagined yet. That's when the big sharks came sniffing around .vc firms. Tech accelerators. Strategic partners. I played it smart. I didn't just accept every offer. I learned, negotiated, surrounded myself with people smarter than me. People who knew law, capital, acquisition. I made sure I owned more than just stock. I owned control. A Fortune 500 company offered to buy us out 8 figures. I declined. People thought I was crazy, but I knew something they DID in single quotes. I had data. I had momentum. And most importantly, I had purpose. While everyone else chased quick exits, I was building legacy. A few months later, I made a bigger move. Co-founded a second company. This one focused on embedded financial tools, things that could integrate directly into small business software around the globe. Accounting, payments, expense tracking, all seamless, all with a human touch. It exploded. Not because of me, but because I knew exactly what people like me needed. And finally, the world was ready to listen. In a matter of 2 years, our second company became a beast in the fintech space. We raised over $60 million in capital. And here's the wild part. We didn't spend $1 on advertising. Just word of mouth. Real value. Organic growth. By this point, I wasn't living in that shared apartment anymore. I'd moved into a penthouse overlooking the skyline, not to show off, but because, for once, I wanted space. Peace. I drove a Tesla, flew first class. Ate at places where the menu didn't have prices, but still no arrogance. No announcements. I hadn't told my family a thing. Let them think I was doing okay. I didn't care anymore until one morning, I got a letter. It was from my sister's bank. They were inviting me to a private banking client preview, a soft launch of an elite wealth management program they were testing. Why me? Because one of my companies had been doing transactions through their system, and they had no idea the CEO was me. Apparently, some exec had flagged my account movement. Said I fit the profile for ultra high net worth. So they sent me an invitation, unofficial letterhead, signed by her. Her name, her title, her perfect cold signature, and something inside me stirred. Not revenge, not bitterness, just readiness. I RSVP'd yes, and the following Thursday, I walked through the doors of the same branch where she once laughed in my face. But this time, I wasn't wearing cheap sneakers and borrowed clothes. I wore a suit, tailored, sharp. I didn't have to pretend. I was the part now. The receptionist greeted me by name. I was escorted to a private glass room with luxury chairs and a tray of espresso options, and 5 minutes later, she walked in, clipboard in hand, smiling like she had no idea what was coming. But the moment her eyes met mine, her smile froze. You could see it. The flicker, the mental rewind. She knew. She remembered. Daniel. I nodded. There was silence. Heavy. Sharp. Then she laughed nervously this time. Wow. I didn't know you were. You're here for the wealth client onboarding? I didn't answer. Instead, I pulled out a tablet, opened the banking app. And moved $3.5 billion right there. Right in front of her. A transfer from one account to another. Clean, smooth, quiet. The screen flashed. Green. Transfer complete. Her hands shook slightly. She cleared her throat. Is that your company's total? I smiled politely. No, That's just what's in that account for now. Another silence. She didn't ask. Any more questions? She couldn't, because there's no response for that kind of shift. No. Words for watching someone you belittled become something too big to ignore. I didn't rub it in. I didn't mock her. I didn't even bring up the $100. I just finished the meeting, shook her hand, and walked out. But in her eyes, I saw it all. The regret, the shame, the realization that the boy she once laughed at had become a man who didn't need to speak to be heard. You'd think a moment like that would feel explosive. Fireworks, confetti, a grand sense of arrival, but it wasn't like that at all. It was quiet, almost peaceful. The moment I stepped out of that glass conference room, I could still feel her eyes on my back. She hadn't moved. She didn't even pretend to look busy. She just stood there, frozen in her tailored pantsuit, holding that clipboard like it was a shield. And me, I didn't feel proud or victorious. I felt done, not with her, but with the past. That final meeting wasn't a win, it was a full stop. Closure I never asked for, but always needed. I walked past the front desk, the same floor where I once stood small and desperate, where her laughter echoed like a punch to my soul. Now, nothing. The receptionist smiled. Security nodded. They all treated me like royalty, without even knowing why. That's the thing about power. Real power. It doesn't scream. It walks in, does its job, and leaves with grace. Outside the bank, the sun was shining. The valet handed me my keys without needing a name. I slid into the leather seat of my car and just sat there. Breathing. Processing. She had said nothing, and yet everything had been said. In her eyes, I saw years unravel. Regret for words spoken in arrogance, panic over what she'd missed, and disbelief pure. Disbelief that someone she'd labeled as hopeless had become someone too wealthy to even be measured. That evening, I sat on the balcony of my penthouse, glass of wine in hand, city lights below. Phone in front of me, silent, and then it rang. Her name. For the first time in 4 years, I let it ring. No voicemail. 30 minutes. Later. Again. Then a text. Can we talk, please? I didn't reply, not out of spite, but because I finally understood something. I didn't need to go back and explain how I got here. She could Google it, read the articles, follow the trail of press releases. Everything I had built was public now. My name, my face, my work, but I wasn't interested in proving anything to her anymore. That chapter was over. A few weeks later, I got a letter. Handwritten. From her. Pages long. Apologies. Excuses. Memories. She wrote about her childhood, about our parents always favoring her, about how she had felt pressure to be the perfect one, and how putting me down made her feel superior. Even if it was wrong. She admitted that day in her office haunted her, that when I walked out, something in her knew. She had just lost more than a brother. She asked for lunch, a conversation, a second chance. I folded the letter carefully and put it in a drawer because I didn't need revenge, and I didn't need to forgive her in person to move on. I already had. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't confrontation, it's transformation. Let them watch, let them wonder, let them feel the absence of access they once took for granted, because people remember how you made them feel when they needed you most. And the best revenge is needing nothing from them ever again. Some stories end with fireworks. Mine ended with silence, not because nothing was left to say, but because I'd finally said it all. Without speaking a word, that night, sitting on my balcony, I looked over the skyline with a strange feeling in my chest. It wasn't pride, it wasn't relief. It was stillness. I had done it, not just made money, not just built companies. I had rewritten the story I was born into. I had walked through fire and built something from the ashes. And now The noise was gone. No more proving. No more chasing. I finally understood something people don't talk about enough. Success doesn't heal everything. It doesn't erase the childhood scars. It doesn't fix broken families. It doesn't fill the silence at dinner tables where love used to live. It just gives you space. Space to breathe. Space to decide who you want in your life. Space to no longer accept the weight others placed on your shoulders. I never replied to my sister's letter, not because I hated her, but because I no longer needed her validation or her voice. I had found mine, and I'd used it in boardrooms, on stages, in every decision I made when no one was watching. She had watched me walk away once, broke and humiliated. This time I walked away again, rich, quiet, and unbothered, because I have finally learned the best kind of success isn't loud. It doesn't need applause. It just shows up and speaks without saying a single thing.